Hey everyone, I'm Samar. I'm a second year business management and marketing undergrad, and today I'm going to talk about my recent experience with WWC UK, the program that took place in September 2023. So since day one at uni, I've been receiving hundreds of emails, and I'm sure you have too, about all the opportunities that the university has to offer to boost our skills and our profiles. And one of them that really caught my eye was the Westminster Working Culture program. And last year, I thought of applying for it a bunch of times, but I just chickened out because I thought whether or not I'm going to get selected and what the program is really going to be like. But this year I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go for it at least once and see what it really is about. And the program was for 5 days, as shall be said. 4 of them were in London, then we had a day trip to Liverpool. We had a lot of sessions on campus, we hit up a lot of offices, and we even had virtual sessions with a lot of people all around the globe. And a lot of them were our university's alumni. And out of all those office visits, there was a company known as Harris People. It's an advertising agency. And it just got me thinking that I wasn't even aware that this company existed, but their working environment and the kind of work they do just really connected with me. And it's definitely one of the companies I would love to work at in the future. So, and on their panel, there were a lot of recent graduates from my university who were talking about all the opportunities that they took up, that the university had to offer, which helped them stand out from all the other interns they were with and helped them landing a more permanent position at Harris People. So it was just very relatable because all of us have the privilege, just like them, to take up those opportunities and turn them into something beneficial for us. So that was definitely something I related to, and something that really motivated me that okay, even I can go out there and discover the opportunities that Harris People have to offer. And if I have to talk about my highlight from the program, it would definitely be hearing all these badass professionals working in established companies, talking about their journeys. And it just makes you feel inspired, obviously, but it also makes you feel that, okay, you can do it as well, because a lot of them were recent graduates or were just graduating. So you think that, okay, one day, soon enough, you can also be the one sharing your experience with other students. So the program definitely opened up my eyes about the importance of networking. I always used to think that it's important to build connections in your chosen field, but I realized that no, that's not true. You should build connections with different kind of people from all different backgrounds, because you never know where you're going to get your break from. You never know who's going to present an opportunity to you, that you might be interested in, and it might take you to good places in your life. So just always be open to networking with different kind of people. And another thing I would like to talk about is confidence. I've always been a very chatty girl around my friends, but when it came to big groups and like unknown people, I'm just very shy to talk. But because of the program, I am here standing in front of all of you today, giving a speech about how my journey was with the program. And it just makes me feel proud that Westminster Working Culture helped me gain that confidence to be able to finally do something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And I'm seriously really grateful to the program because it opened a lot of doors for me. It was definitely a roller coaster of boosting my skills and building network with amazing people, and finding more about myself and what my interests really are. And I would just like to say one thing to all of you, that if you guys feel that this is something a bit out there for you, just take this chance and go for it, because I'm sure this program is going to help you build amazing skills, your confidence, and most importantly, help you network with so many amazing people. And isn't that what all of us want? To build good connections that are going to help us in the future. And yeah, just take that chance and go for it. And thank you for listening to me, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Samar. So I hope that gives everyone a better understanding of what Working Cultures UK program can look like. And now I'm very happy to pass over to Nico to share his experience. So once again, he's the Executive Director at JP Morgan Private Bank. So please join me in welcoming Nico. Thank you.
Wow, there's no pressure, just following that good speech, actually. And I think I'll start by echoing one point. You hear the word networking a lot, and if you go and Google stuff, it's usually one of the first words that pop up. I think the first thing to explain, because we were doing a talk to like second-year school students a few months ago, and people were saying, "Oh yeah, you need to network, and the 16 and 17-year-olds were sitting there a little bit glazed around what's this funny terminology that these people are talking about. And I think the first concept that is very important is that pretty much everything you're going to be doing, it doesn't really matter if you're at university or not, will involve human relationship, right? And even in a bank, and even in a very technical part of the bank, it is still going to be a lot based on human communication. And the skill of networking is as basic as the skill of making friends, of being friendly, of being open, of being acceptant, of talking, of wanting people to talk to you in exchange of ideas and get them more comfortable with who you are, what you think, how you think, getting to know them. They may remember you afterwards. And just that, organically, if you want, grows the people that know you, the people that then when you come for employment, will look for you or will seek people like you. So let's take a step back. So I kind of grew up and did all my schooling in Switzerland. So my mother's English and my father's Italian, that's the surname. But I kind of grew up in Switzerland. Normal school, finished school, normal grades, pretty average. I got a university in Switzerland. For different reasons, it doesn't work out. So I crash out of first year university. And then in Switzerland, you still need to do your military service. So I get called in, I do my time there. And then afterwards, I have a choice, what do I do? Do I come back? Do I stay in Switzerland? Do I kind of keep trying to do that? Or do I go for something different? At that time, for me, for different reasons, it worked very well for me to take an opportunity abroad and come to Westminster. And that's what I did. And for me, at that point in time, it was ideal to move away from, if you want, where I grew up and expand and grow my wings and kind of be brave, if you want, and put myself out there. And I think that's the first thing I would say, is that it's very important for everybody to understand that it doesn't really matter if you starting from the tiny school, going from kindergarten into school, from middle school to high school, or whatever you want to call it, or coming into university. The next step is always the scary step, if you want. But at the end of the day, it's going to be roughly the same rules, it's roughly the same people, it's roughly the same way of interacting. People are still going to be expecting you to be polite, to be engaged, to be interested, to want to share your ideas. And I think that's one of the first things that's important, even when you start applying for jobs. Don't forget, the people that are sitting opposite you want to hire people. They want to hire somebody, right? And similarly to you guys, if I ask you all to sit down today and say, you know what, let's open a small company. And then I tell you, go and hire somebody. Like, if you park your friends to one side for a second, the first thing you're going to start thinking about when you want to interview somebody is, are they interested? Do they want to hear about what I'm talking about? Are they interested in the company? Are they interested in maybe the tasks I'm going to give them? Are they, I don't want to say hardworking, but are they interested? Will they come every day? Are they coming at regular times? And all of those skills, dare I say, are things that are going to help you. So going back to my story, so I came to university, I did my 3 years, and then I went back to Switzerland. I didn't find a job straight away here in London. And again, going back to my network, somebody that was at school with me years before that, 2 years above me, I met him one evening in the bar, we were chatting, and he was like, oh, you know what, I work at JP Morgan, we're looking for graduates, just give me your CV, I'll put it on the pile. And that's 20 years ago. Yeah. And maybe I wouldn't even have applied at JP Morgan otherwise. I knew I had interest in the financial industry, but that was about it. There was no, premeditated anything. So I think that's one step, just to show you it's important for you to put yourself out there, talk with people you know, have a good idea of where you want to go, but don't be too narrow in your initial search. I see a lot of people coming to me and saying, oh, I want to be an investment bank trader, this, that. And it's like, well, you may have to be a little bit less picky, dare I say, for your first job, maybe even your second or third job. And to give you a rough idea, over the 20 years within JP Morgan, I've done about seven different jobs. Yeah. So it's quite important to understand, if you start in a smaller company, you may have a little bit less flexibility, but the job brief may be a little bit broader. For me, one of the advantages I found with a big corporate is that you get quite a lot of training on day one. And also, there's always quite a lot of flexibility around being able to move internally as and when you see fit. So when you evolve your skill set, you evolve your knowledge, you also get a better understanding of what's around you, what's required of you, and then you start saying, you know what, I started off in operations, and at the time when I started off, we used to receive still paper checks that we had to write down in a freaking Excel spreadsheet manually, which means loads of errors because people typing in numbers is not great. And we used to do that, like, not every day, but every quarter we used to receive that. Plus we used to tie out payments and cash movements in and out of accounts and stuff, which was not the most interesting job, I have to say. But that enabled me to get onto the graduate program, and from there I was able to move to London, and I started in the investment bank there, and I worked on a structured finance team that used to help the traders put together fairly complicated derivatives, and I kind of grew from there slowly. I think one of the myths, dare I say, that is quite important to understand is, and one of the questions was a little bit in this direction, is your perception, and sorry Westminster, your perception coming out of Westminster and going into the corporate world, don't think about yourself as, ooh, this is going to be impossible because I come from Westminster and I don't have a physics PhD from Oxford, right, or anywhere else. I think what's important is that it doesn't always you don't have access straight away sometimes to the same jobs on day one. It's going to be a higher challenge in some areas, but as soon as, from my point of view, as soon as you enter a big corporate, it's up to you really to prove yourself every day. And it's the same in sport or anything else, right? You can make it in a big sports team, but maybe you start on the bench, and as you get better, you play on the field, and maybe as you get better, you can move on the field wherever you really want to play. And that again is just building up your skill set. So you will have a certain amount of skills now coming out of university, and I think what's going to be very important is for each one of you to understand those skills. Because for me it took a few years just to do that. So what am I good at? What do I like doing? What am I interested in? That should be the things you start thinking about. And then you start working your way into, okay, so if I want this type of job, is it more a job that requires more social skills maybe, or more technical mathematical skills, or more business management skills, or more social, etc., etc. I'll give you an example. Like, I have very little interest in becoming a banker. Banker is very social. You need to be able to walk into a room and quite quickly be very good friends. They're very brave to go to anybody to introduce themselves and do the pitch and everything. That's not for me. Right? I'm not interested in that, but I love puzzle making on the geeky side, trying to put together fairly complex financial constructs, talking to clients sometimes, but usually by the time I talk to them, they're already clients of the bank, and we talk about how we can try and solve certain complexities they have with their finances, or where the money is to go and how and where and when. So I think that's also very important for all of you, is really to understand that. So from my CV being on that pile, a little bit randomly, then I get a call, and then it's a question of, please come and see us for a few meetings. So you have a bunch of interviews. Some of them ask for more or less formal things. Some have little tests, some don't. I think that my best feedback on all that is, and this is going to sound a little bit odd, but just try and be yourself as much as possible. Like at the end of the day, you need to come there prepared, put yourself out there, and you'll see. And it's going to be quite brutal, to be honest, because you're probably going to have to do quite a lot of them. But that's just the competitive nature of the market, right? Just like anything else, you're going to be realizing slowly, if you haven't yet, that it's pretty competitive out there. Some people, as in athletics or any other sport or anything else, if you want, put in long hours and long times, and there's a certain reason why they become the best in the world, but it's the same in the corporate world. And that's a balancing act that all of you will have to make between your skill set. But it's not just your skill set, it's also how much grit you have and how much you want it. So I think that's quite important, because it often gets lost a little bit. So once I started at JP Morgan, I think the first thing that's important to understand is a little bit what do we call a bank, right? Because a bank is something fairly generic. All of you will have come across one in the retail space, but it actually means a lot of different things. So you have all your retail bank, which you will know. You can have your checking account, or you can do everything online today and just get your card, and that'll just help you move money around, make your payments and all that. So that's the more retail side. As you get richer, dare I say, and you have more means, you will transfer into what they call the private bank, at least on our side where I work. That tends to be individuals, sometimes it's families, sometimes they're set up in different legal entities as trusts or corporates or other things. They tend to be a lot more wealthy, they tend to need a lot more complex solutions, be it how you lend money, be it how you invest money, be it how you move money across the world between different companies they own or real estate or other things. So there's a lot more skills that suddenly start coming into that. So I focus on the derivative side, so anything that has like options, swaps, anything a little bit funky, but we have specialists for lending, we have specialists for general investments, etc., etc. And then that's kind of one sleeve, if you want, as in managing, let's say, people's money. You have the more investment or corporate bank sleeve. So that is part of the bank that will focus on managing and helping companies manage their money, manage their funds. Like, how do they pay for lighting? How do they pay for furniture? How do they pay for their employees at the end of the month? How is that all going to be set up? How the pensions are set up, etc., etc. So you have a corporate bank and you have the investment bank that sits with it. The investment bank, the main purpose is really to help companies issue new equity, issue new debt into the market, finance projects. That's really the goal of the private bank. The view of people have sometimes of the private bank when you watch Wolf of Wall Street or any other kind of older film, that does not exist anymore. Like today, what we call internally a prop trader, so a proprietary trader, does not exist anymore, right? After 2008, 2009, all the desks got closed and a lot of those people went off to create their hedge funds, which is basically just people creating a company that you can then give them money and they'll invest on your behalf. It's not really anything more than that. So I think that's what's important when you think about the investment bank. It's really there to help corporates move money, do deals, issue debt, issue stock, etc., etc. And then finally, you have an asset management branch. Asset management is basically the part of the bank that will help big institutional investors, like, for example, pension funds or big funds like that that need to invest money for long term, and they will get specific help from that point of view. So that's a little bit the view in there. And I think one thing that's important also is, and now I talk more from the side of a very big bank, is that we employ people from not just everywhere geographically, but also all types of jobs. So it's not like JP Morgan only employs traders or bankers or solutions, i.e. product people like myself, but we have people that do marketing for us, we have people that do online marketing for us, we have people that organize events, so we have events planners, we even have chefs. Actually, I think one of the chefs that's in London here was on professional chef, whatever thingies that's called. So there's a lot of different things. When you start looking at big corporates, it's not always a question of, ooh, if I want to do this or that, it has to be a certain profile of company. I think you will find there's a lot of things to offer out there across all the different companies. I think one thing that's important sometimes to understand is the finance world and the product worlds. So finance, probably similarly to a lot of other companies or types of sectors, specializes in its own vocabulary. That is not something I think you guys should be too worried about when you come into it. You may hear about all the specific words or how we call certain products. Obviously you can read as much as you can these days online, and there's quite a lot of information out there. But I think you also need to realize that when people hire you in as students, everybody knows you're a student. Right? They're not going to expect you to come in and be a 10-year veteran. So I think from that point of view, I wouldn't be too worried. But I think what is important to go back now to the skill set and the employability is very much for you to know yourself and to be able to present yourself out there. One of the important bits is for you to be able to show that you're keen and you're interested and you're reliable. And just on day one, that's very important. Because people that are not interested, that don't show up, that are late, that barely know the name of where they're going, it's very difficult for you to then have any confidence. Don't forget, as a hiring manager, you need to say, I have a certain amount of work that I need to give, right? And it doesn't really matter if I've got a team of 5 or a team of 50, it's the same story. There's a certain amount of work that is expected, even, dare I say, from me to get paid, to be blunt. So when I hire somebody in, if they don't pull their weight, somebody else is going to have to. You need to think about that. It's the same if you were going to hire somebody. And very often, what happens is that today, the person that's going to be hiring you, the person that is going to be looking at your CV, is you in 2 or 3 years' time. Think about that. So I hire my juniors. They may be 3 or 4 years into the job. When I get 120 CVs for one job, I'm not going to read them. The person's going to read them, right? And they're not going to have 50 hours of training on reading CVs or anything, right? We're going to sit down, we're going to say, this is the job spec, we need somebody that's technical, or that's got a good math degree, or good understanding, they're very keen, they're going to rock up and help us, and they're going to want to drive this, they're going to want to understand it, they're interested. Good luck. Go and find 20 good people in 120. And then we'll call those in, we'll interview those 20. And that'll get whittled down. You'll probably see me if you're in the last 2. So I think that's how it's important for you guys to understand. When you come into that process, realize that it's not always a hard mechanical process, right? There are a lot of people in there that is literally going to be you guys in 2 or 3 years' time. So it's important for you to understand you need to put yourself out there, you need to be keen, you need to be interested, you need to be bold, you need to be like, I want this. This is me, right? And the hard bit is probably not going to be the first time you do this spiel, but it's probably going to, the hard bit is probably going to, when it's going to be the 15th time, right? Because you're probably not going to get the first one. And I think that's where it's going to be a little bit difficult, and that's another skill that slowly you're going to have to get, is that kind of grit and how much you want it. Because even if you start in a big company, I see a lot of people that have started with me, some fall by the side, they're not interested, it's maybe not for them, they'll change, they'll go and do something else. And then life gets more complex, you know, as you start having kids, as you start having partners, etc., etc., etc. Time is suddenly a lot more difficult to manage. I'll give you another example. When I started off, I was doing, let's call it normal hours, you know, maybe 9 or 10 hours. When I moved to the investment bank, I was still part of what they call the operations. So kind of the hidden part of the bank, if you want, right? And at that point in time, I moved from Geneva to London. And I saw that I was like, I've got a good job here. I'm sitting quite close to what they call the front office, so the traders and the salespeople. And I thought, you know what? I've got 2 or 3 years to break through. So you can do two things. You can sit there, you can come in at 9 o'clock, do your job, work your way through, do an okay job, leave at 6 and everybody's happy and you'll get paid and that's fine, right? Or you can be a bit more opportunistic and aggressive. And that means you come in earlier, you leave later, you put in more work, you work harder, and that's similar to what you're doing today, right? I don't want to, well, I will say, it's your choice if you walk out of Westminster with a 2-2 or a first. I used to have a university, well, this is probably actually the only quote I remember from my first year at university in Switzerland. We used to have an economics teacher. And the first course we had was economics on a Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And the first day, there was a bunch of us in the auditorium, and he said, thank you very much for leaving your partner in bed and coming to university today. You've made that choice to come here. And this is the same, like through life, you're gonna, if I can generalize for a second, you're gonna have to make choices of where you spend your time. Like today, I bet you if we make a calendar of how you spend your time, I don't want to use the word wasted, but you're probably spending 4 to 6 hours a day not really doing focus stuff, right? And if you account for minimum wage is like 10 quid, just around it, 4 hours a day times 5 times 52 weeks, or minus a few weeks holiday, that's already 10, 20,000 pounds a year on minimum wage, right? So I think it's very important. What I'm trying to get to you is you need to be purposeful. You need to think about what you want, and at certain times in your life, some things are going to suit you more. I was prepared to put in the hours. I used to start at 7 in the morning. I used to go home at 9 at night. I used to do that 5 to 6 days a week, and I used to do that for about 3 years. And that gave me my breakthrough, which means that about 4 years in, then I was basically on the trading floor. I was doing sales in equity derivatives at the time for a few years. And I was sitting next to the chaps that did Harvard, PhDs, and other stuff. So don't forget that the university helps you get in. But once you're through the door, just like everywhere else, you need to make your own way. And that's going to be really up to your skill set, but also how hard you push yourself and how motivated you are. Like, it's not going to matter what's your background, how many years, where you come from. Like, I see some junior people that are coming through quicker than some of the senior people because they wanted more. And that's fine. I think that what I'm trying to get to you is just that you need to accept it, but you're going to get out what you put in also. So don't think that just by sitting there dreaming things are just going to happen. Like, you really need to act. You need to be purposeful about stuff, right? You don't need to make a 5-year plan, but you need to tell yourself, okay, I want a decent job in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. What do I need to do to work backwards? Do I want to work in this sector or that sector? Start there. And plans change, so I wouldn't worry too much. In 2 or 3 years' time, you start working, oh, I don't like this, try something else. If you're in a big company, I was seeing, sometimes I took a job like a few years ago, and like two or 3 years in the job, I was like, this doesn't interest me anymore. But you know what? I work quite a lot with this other team over there. And what they do, that I find quite cool. So I slowly get to know the manager. I talk to the team more. I get interested. And when they have an opening, bang, it happens. So that's partly networking, that's partly interacting with them and getting to know them. Similarly to here. I think some of the interesting questions we had also come through and I saw was around culture, so we can talk a little bit about culture at bank, and I can give you a little bit of a feel for some of the stuff that we're working on that could interest you guys. So I think culture is very different per company, and that's something that's very difficult to read from outside. You can look at the websites, you can see how much to try and put into, be it philanthropic exercises or how they try and push back or put into the local communities. I think that there's quite a lot around that. I'm quite proud to be at JP Morgan, and I'm biased obviously, but I think we do a lot more than others. There's a lot of different areas you can talk about and you can drill into. I think the last time I was here we were talking about ESG, but there's also a lot of what we call all the internal inclusion and equity part that we do very well. So we have a number of what we call BRGs, which is just another funny acronym to say Business Resource Group. And basically we have different focuses. One's going to focus on the more, for example, non-visible conditions like dyslexia or ADHD or things like that. You're going to have one that focuses more on Latinos, one that's going to focus more on parents, working parents, etc., etc. And those are just basically a group of us that sit down and try and talk about how can we make our lives easier, better, how can we tweak this, how can we tweak that. And we take it back to management, we sit down and we make the changes. In some cases quickly, in some cases it's a little bit more tricky. So I think there's quite a lot being done in the industry. It's very different to what it was when I started off. In those days it was a lot more aggressive. I remember a lot more keyboards flying around and people throwing things at each other in non-happy manners. But dare I say, these days it doesn't really happen too much anymore. It's a shame because sometimes it was quite fun when you were far away. But yeah, no, it's a lot better in the general environment. And it's moved away a lot from what it used to be. So I think that's quite important. And maybe lastly, yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, the financial industry is a funny beast, but for me, I think what I find very interesting is the challenge. It's a lot about finding solutions. So often clients will come and we need to help them find a solution by using the products we can have on the shelf. So I think that's where it gets interesting. There's always different parts of the bank where it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit more rolling through the motions. But I think it's quite interesting to have a challenge and a fun day as opposed to something too boring.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can do Q&A.